gals, thank you so much for joining us again on another Director's Cut. So today we're actually going to talk about teenagerhood, and we've pretty much decided as we were discussing this topic that we are going to keep it kind of surface level. And the reason why is because there are several topics that we could go deeper and probably will go deeper on. And so we want your guys' feedback. Please let us know if there's some topics that resonated with you and you're like, yes, I want you guys to go deeper on that topic, because we will definitely do that. They're very deep and kind of difficult topics, and so we don't want to do it nonchalantly. We want to give it the proper respect and ability to talk through it in a way that is going to be helpful. So with that huge preface, we are going into a pretty, a little bit deeper of a topic with the teenagerhood. So again, we're going to talk about what it was for each of us. We all have very different backgrounds, the good, the bad, and the beautiful. And so we hope you enjoy. All right. So who wants to start this juicy topic? Ooh.
I can kick it off. So teenagehood for me, I will say that there were definitely some difficult moments throughout middle school, especially middle school. But it wasn't unpleasant. I wasn't like I would say, oh, I never had to, live through that again. There was a lot of amazing moments, a lot of amazing experiences that I had through being a teenager and just stepping a little bit more into myself and finding my voice, finding who I am. And really, if you know me today, you knew me then, there's a lot of the same, thematic things in my life as far as creativity. And really, I've been very, very blessed to be able to hang on to those positive pieces of my teenagehood. And it really did shape who I am today. So I'm thankful for all of it, even the not so great parts, because it did shape who I am and gave me, I think, a confidence that I don't think I would have had if it hadn't rolled out the way it was. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was a roller coaster. So I'm one of those strange people. I loved high school. I had so much fun, and the main reason is I didn't really go to high school. I cut more classes than anyone in that was my claim to fame at one point. But again, it goes back to, it was very wild. And we're not going to dig into all the issues, but there was drug addiction, there was abuses, and I just rode this thing out like it was, I'm going to slide into home looking like a hot mess, but I'm going to have a good time anyway. I look back and it's funny because, if you have kids, they want to hear about you growing up. They want to hear your stories. And I'm going, oh, I can't tell you that one. No, can't tell you that one. Wait, still can't tell you that one. And as they've gotten older and I've gotten to share the stories, I was wild. I feel bad for my mom. I feel bad for some of the stuff that I did and how I behaved. But I also know that it is where I get to kind of still hone my wild side, still even today. And I still, I don't think I'd have the power to do that without having been just as out of control as I was. So
I love it.
I think it's just a roller coaster. Hang on. It's like the whirlwind. What was the one you used to have in the playgrounds where you spin and spin until you flew off?
Yeah.
Merry-go-round thing,
Yeah.
whatever it was. Yeah.
They don't have them
Carousel.
anymore.
Yeah. So they were also metal.
Like big
Details.
holes,
Because people flew off, you go 20 feet. But that's what it was like. It was like just staying on that crazy. And we did I look back going, I don't know how my mother was 100% gray and drinking all the time.
Because she probably didn't know half the stuff you did.
She did not. She did not. She still, and to the day she died, she still did not, and I'm okay with that.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, it's a merry-go-round.
I love it. I kind of want to go last, but I'm also feeling like I should just go because
Well, then go.
my teenagerhood for me was, I talked about in the girlhood how like it kind of, the storm was starting when we moved. And so we moved into a place from safety to a place where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. I started being a liar. I started doing all kinds of things to try and fit in. I didn't know what else to do. And so, and I don't want to go super deep into it, but I did start lying. I did start creating a persona of who I thought I had to be to fit in. So that was lying about having sex, and it was lying about all these different things. And so that actually carried through all the way up until I was a pregnant teenager. And
The lie becomes,
yeah,
it becomes just reality. Yeah.
it did. And I actually am very thankful though, as I look back, and it wasn't worse than it was because of all the lies. You know, it could have been so much worse. I had plenty of opportunities for it to be worse, and I feel like I look back and I can see somebody watching over me. So I'm very thankful for that. And I'm very thankful for the little bits, because the good that I could see in it is the moments when I decided very clearly, like, oh, I don't want to be that person. Oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Oh, I don't want to do this. And so that really framed who I am today, and I think is probably a huge factor in why I am who I am today, because I had those, because it was so bad, the moments were so defining, and it was such clear character, like, moments that it was like, I don't want to be that person anymore. And I don't know if it hadn't been that bad, if I would have had it so so defined,
Or maybe not as quickly.
yeah, or so big. I mean, because it was so bad, it was also so big.
Yeah.
Because I got in a lot of trouble, and so therefore it really did define so much of who I was. So teenagerhood for me was just absolutely, like, I could just delete those years out. if I had the ability, I honestly could say, I know a lot of people are like, I wouldn't delete it, because I would delete it. I don't even want people to know me from that time period. I wish they didn't. I have a few people that I'm okay and I've made amends with, but I have like so many other people that I'm like, I just wish they didn't know me at that time. That's my teenagehood.
See, and it's funny, the wild part, I didn't get in trouble. Like we should have.
Yeah.
Ooh, we should have. Some of the moments I think, gosh, I'm impressed we're still here. Not just in trouble, but that we're still here. But I have the opposite. I made some of the best friends, and we are still friends. We have our 30th high school reunion coming up, and we are all flying from all different parts of the country to make sure, are we all going to be there?
Aww.
Not really for the reunion, but for us, you know.
Your reunion.
And we all did our wild things, you know. But and now looking at us now, you know, are you sure we were the same people?
Called adulting.
Yes.
Adulting.
I think, you know, teenage years and beyond, we're figuring out who we are.
Yeah.
And there's so many options. And for me, I said that, you know, I was shy in public. And so I went to a big high school and just wore my hair long and hid it behind my red hair. And, you know, would get really emotional and cry if, you know, the band teacher yelled at you or something, you know, or put you on the spot to have to play a solo. And it's like, oh, you know, and so just that super insecure. And then, but at home, I felt loved and confident. So I was able to play and be myself at home, but I had a lot of pent up feelings. So I was also extremely moody. Little redheaded tantrums. I'm embarrassed that, you know, my sisters and my best friend all saw me, you know, throw this whatever crying tantrum because I didn't have anything to wear, or what, you know, ridiculous.
I think almost every
I think
teenage
that-
girl
yeah.
has said that. Yeah.
Okay.
Rest assured.
And some more than once.
But
And I think they still do it too.
Yeah.
Still.
So,
Yeah, it still happens.
Now it's just on social media.
But then you have this, and we've talked about this before, so I think it's more of a common theme also, but that you feel like you're two different people. At home, you're this person. At church, you're this person. At school, you're this person. And so who are you? You know, well, in reality, you're probably all of them, right? That you're just free to share that with different groups. And I think as we mature, then we can meld and choose, like, okay, you know,
but it's even more than that. When my family owned a catering company, and one of my teachers in high school was getting her, I think it was her daughter was getting married. One of her children was getting married. Irrelevant. Well, of course, family owns a catering company. I have to go put my black skirt on, my white top on, you know, braid the hair, and here I am serving trays. And the teacher comes up to my mom and goes, God, what a great job. You guys have done beautiful. But I didn't see Kira. And my mom's looking at her like, what are you talking about? And I'm literally standing right there. And because she had no concept of me being in that role, for me, that was a hugely defining moment, because I could go change and do. I mean, literally to the point where people didn't know who I was. I'm like, that's a kind of
power.
cool
Superpower.
Visibility. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
ooh.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of it, is you do get to try on like these different costumes, and to say costume for lack of a better word, but personas. And I think it's good that we kind of have that 2-person, 3-person, 4-person personality for a while there. And then we pick out the best, hopefully, ideally you pick out the best from each. And then you magically turn 18 and you're perfect adults. Nope. Yeah, I missed that one too.
Well, for me, I think in high school, and Mariah could probably attest to this, I was very focused.
She
I
was.
had very little tolerance. And and I came across some crossroads. You know, I mentioned in the childhood episode about my family's lifestyle being very different. And from a pretty young age, I knew that that wasn't the lifestyle I wanted. And so pretty early in my high school days, the crossroad was stay where you're at, and you're probably going to end up living a very similar lifestyle, or walk away. So I moved out when I was in high school. I was living on my own, working 2 jobs, going to school, sleeping through some classes sometimes.
I think we all did that too.
Yeah, we didn't have the excuses.
You said a good reason. We did not.
But I also was trying to still be a teenager and have fun. So I guess there was kind of some duality to it. But it all came down to, is this going to impede where I'm headed? Are you in my way? Go. When people around me would be like, oh man, my mom wouldn't let me have the car tonight. Like, that would annoy me, because I'm like, really? That's your problem? I'm wondering how I'm going to pay rent.
You're like, I think you have different problems than I do.
Yes, but it took me a long time to realize, prospectively, that was a big deal to them. That was just as big of a deal to them as me not getting the shift I wanted so I could pay my bills.
Yeah.
But so yeah, for me it was
It's a lot of strength
focus,
at a young age too.
lack of tolerance,
A lot.
and crossroads.
Because I do think at that age where you look at, oh my gosh, I can't have the car tonight. That should, in my opinion, be the biggest problem you have as a child and into your teenage years. And yet there are so many that are like, really? That's your problem? And it's,
I'm sure I was that nice about it too.
but you know, sitting where I'm sitting now, yeah, people, they need to know. I think it's idealistic to say that's my biggest problem, but really, and I think so very few kids get to life where that is their biggest problem. We would love to have all of our kids say that, but it's not the world.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, so just moving right into the good, I'm not even gonna like give it too much, because we could just keep going. This is so good. I think what you're saying, I'm like loving everything. I think when I look at what was good was, I mean, for one, I'm loving this because I'm like, oh, I wasn't alone. Also, I'm loving it because it's true. There were certain things that you could kind of see moving. Like we moved. There was the move at mid sixth grade. Then we moved again my freshman year, and then we moved again my sophomore year. And then I joined the military in my junior year. But each time I was able to refine and say, I don't really want to be that person. Okay, I'm going to try this. And I mean, I certainly didn't get it right each time.
Sure.
I still had a lot of things where it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to try this persona and I'm going to try this. I gave myself kind of between freshman year and sophomore year, I gave myself a little makeover and I was like, I'm pretty hot. And that also was not a good thing. That was not a good thing. But and then also joining the military that junior year between junior and senior year, then I hated school after that. So it's just really interesting just thinking about that. Like I'm not the only person that had multiple things going on. I mean, that was like personality upon personality upon personality upon personality. Like, oh my gosh. But then you do kind of get to that point where like, okay, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've done this, I've done that, and like, this is who I want to be. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. You kind of pick and choose, and you can kind of learn and grow. And
you get to make yourself.
Yeah. I eventually finally came, probably in my early 20s, really, to who I wanted to be. Whew.
That's good in your early 20s.
I was going to say, I'm impressed.
I didn't have it perfect, but I had been through enough that my basic foundational person, that's what it was.
For me, I think is where I was super wild through my teenage years. It was in my 20s that the consequences of being that, again, with the drug addictions and things like that and the actions there that really kind of solidified what I sort of learned as a teenager. But as far as the beautiful, again, I go back to my friends. I have friends that I've been friends with now, 40 plus years. And these are people that I know for a fact I can call. And if it wasn't for that time period where we really did become close, we all went to camp together, we all went to church together, we all did all this stuff, like it was so intertwined. When my son was born, my oldest son was 8 weeks premature, and the person who is his godfather, but was in law school in Georgetown. And I called him up. I said, hey, he's born. He's in the ICU. My friend goes, what time should I be there tomorrow? There was not a question. And I said, well, actually, you don't need to. He's going to be fine, this kind of stuff. But that's the kind of thing that I feel like if I hadn't had those moments with these people, that's the good for me that came out of this. And we laugh, actually, his godfather and I, we now make Zoom meetings because we don't get to catch up. It's like, granted, it's once every couple of months. We spend 30 minutes on Zoom. Tell me your whole life story for the last 3 months,
What's up?
But that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's, we pick up like it had been yesterday. You got to meet one of my friends that I grew up as a child. You would not have known we had not seen each other in 3 years. Same thing. It's just awesome. So, that's the best part for me. The beauty part.
And I kind of to even layer on that, the friendships, but for me too, it was, I think, going through all of my experiences as a teenager, there was parts of me that grew up really fast and realized I needed to really have focus. And I was it was kind of like a choose your own adventure story. You're like, okay, so if I make this choice, what's down that road? What if I make this choice? What's down that road? And I think I wasn't necessarily, it's kind of weird because I was wild in some ways, but I was also very much wanting to always please people, please my parents, be the good child. I got, got my work done at school. I excelled in that. And so I was very much a weird blend of like, like if you knew who I was, it was always just like a very strange blend because I was also friends with like people all across all of the cliques. There was not people I didn't get along with. And so I knew I had to really focus and figure out what I wanted to do. And so for me, I think, I met my husband in high school, and we met when I was 16, he was 17, and we dated, and he graduated, and I was in my senior year, and made the decision that we were going to get married. And so I was engaged my senior year, which I definitely went through some interesting things through that. My parents were not happy whatsoever. And I thought it was just going to fizzle and pop and go away until we're like,
You
no,
showed
we're
them.
doing
I
this.
was gonna say.
And I showed them, and I made them wear all Renaissance costumes at our wedding.
I love it.
And so, yeah, graduated in June, got married in October. And that was for me, partially because through our relationship and through how we grew together, even through our dating phase, and kind of cracking away some of the pieces that I really needed to shed as that old person, and being so people pleasing. I mean, I still struggled with that, and I still struggle with that today. But I mean, it goes to the point, like when we went on our honeymoon, I brought my camera broke, and he's like, well, where's the camera you got for graduation? And I go, my mom told me I shouldn't bring it. That's like who I was. And he's like, you're an adult, you know that, right? And I'm like, okay.
But it's, I mean, you have started families and stuff like that. That is not the typical
No.
teenage experience. So there's another added layer of trying to almost play adult.
Yeah.
As
And
you're trying to learn, you have to adult. You don't have the choice.
Yeah.
But you're still trying to figure out what that means.
And I kind
Monkey seeing, monkey doing at that point.
exactly. And in my senior year, it was like, okay, here's adulthood, like right down the, like right there. So, and it was probably the best choice I had made. I know it's not a choice I tell people. It's like, don't just get married out of high school. It's not easy. You whippersnappers.
Well, and look at the odds too. I mean,
Yeah, well,
honestly, I can think of a number of people that did get married very young, and the majority of them don't make it.
No,
but then you have
sure.
those few. I have a few people I know married their high school sweetheart right out of high school, and here we are 30 years later, and they're still,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was definitely a divine blessing, I think, around that. So, but it was also intentional.
Yeah.
It was an intentional, very specific. It was not easy, but it was very. This is what I need to do to get where I need to go. So,
Nice.
that's a lot. Again, the strength that at an age when I think. We don't think you can drink, so why do we think you can do these things?
Yeah.
well, I drank, but
I think some good for me is to show that, so
Excuse me.
for my siblings, not that it necessarily took, but my nephew, I think faced some similar but different challenges as myself. And to show him that it doesn't matter the choices that your parents make or the lifestyle of the home that you're raised in. You get to decide what you want out of your life, and you get to decide what road, and the concept of no matter what path you choose, it's not easy. I don't know what that little quote is that's out there. Whether you want to work or not work, you still have to pay bills. So one road isn't easier than the other. It's just choosing your road, choosing your heart, and so for me, that's the
And that you have that
that's come
choice.
out of that.
Yeah. You have that choice too.
I think for me, there's two things that really helped me grow and mature and get through those teen years. And one was just being in the church with the youth group where I had real friends who accepted me. And, there were some bozos there too that, were
Always.
whatever, making
Always.
their own decision. I mean, wasn't a perfect, but I felt accepted and I could be myself. And then serving in the church with just being around the toddlers, it gives you sense of purpose. And what else did I do? Like serving at banquets and, things like that were core teen memories and my relationship with Christ and wanting to be like him. And then the second was my mom, who really, along with pointing us toward Christ and his grace and forgiveness, she was a really good mentor. And she'd been through her own tantrums as a teenager and, told me stories of, standing in the street picking leaves off a tree. I'm like, well, I'm not that bad, that kind of thing. Maybe I was, but no. But, it was like, okay, my mom made it, I can make it, and then just the counseling and mentoring and time and love that she poured into us sisters and ensuring that we had each other's back and, raising us to be, the true support friendship for one another really, really helped through those years.
I love that because
Mama.
I love seeing your guys' family too because I get to know we have gotten to know both your sisters and I love the stories about your mom. I'm like, oh, sounds amazing.
She's a gem.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're gonna just barely dive into the bad. I know we can all go pretty far in that. I do not want to start that one. Just put it out there.
I don't mind because it's something that I have spoken about before. It's something, and it's funny. People go, well, I can't believe you talk about these things. And I said, well, I kind of have to. I don't know why I have to, but I have to. My bad touches on I had an abortion. I did drugs. I quit school. I didn't really quit school. I was technically still in school. I just didn't go. It was bad. The principal tried to staple all the fake notes. He had to make little packets because I had missed so many. So, it was just truly pushing any limit. It was hanging off the Golden Gate Bridge because I thought that was funny and we were high as can be. And now I sit here and I go, in the world, and it's just, that was the bad. It was just this trying over and over to just outrun something and again, there was a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs and not even, now you can go, to the herbery and it's a boutique, we're on the back of some alley buying out, from some random guy.
I was informed the other day that you're supposed to tip.
What?
At a pot shop, you're supposed to tip.
I'm sorry.
I don't spend a lot of time in the menu now. We didn't tip back then, though. I'll tell you that.
Don't run with scissors. That's your tip.
So it was the wild. It was, and it didn't feel bad then. It felt fun then. It felt freeing then. But I think it's the bad now where I look back and I go, wow, it was wrong. There was a lot wrong to be that crazy and to be that reckless and risk taking. So, and yes, I did hang off the back of the bottom of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
I don't recommend it.
I'm glad you're still here with us.
Me too.
Yeah.
So I'll go next. So for me, I'm just gonna scratch the surface on this one. I had, as much as I acted like I had confidence, I had very little confidence. I had a really horrible, I guess I call it body dysmorphia at this point. And I struggled with an eating disorder from about the time I distinctly remember, like the first time I really distinctly remember, I think it was 7th grade, that we would drink as much water and eat as much ice at lunch so we didn't feel hungry and like had 2 crackers. Like it was there's a few friends that we were all kind of in this like eating disorder club, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's what it is.
And it's crazy stuff too.
And it was, and I knew I couldn't be a bulimic, which I'm not trying to be glib about this at all, but I knew I couldn't be a bulimic because I couldn't do that part of all of the eating disorder thing. So I was like, okay, I just want to eat.
The fact that you considered it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which one?
Yeah.
Nope, can't do that. Okay. And it definitely stems from, I think, having been sexually molested as a child. And I think part of that, and we won't go into that too much either, because I think that's a whole other thing, is that I don't actually have a recollection of who that was. And it didn't actually come to light till I was a teenager. Like, I didn't remember it. I only knew I had weird fears as a child. And then you start putting all the pieces together. And you're like, wait, what happened? And I don't know what. And I think that not knowing, and I've never delved into who it was and all of that. It's on a box on a shelf. There's people I know it wasn't that were very important in my life, so that's good. But there's friends of my sisters and all of that I think is kind of where it was, but I just I can't do anything about it at this point. So that I think was something that when you come to that kind of a realization, then all of a sudden it throws everything else. And then I was a dancer. And so in that world, I all of a sudden got hips. Well, dancers don't have hips. Dancers are little squares, little thin sticks. And all of a sudden in 7th, 8th grade, I got hips and I was fat. I wish I was that fat right now.
I wish I was as fat as I was back then.
Right? As I thought I was when I thought I was fat. Yeah.
And so that was a huge thing. I mean, I literally struggled with eating disorder until I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was, by the grace of God, I made the decision to not harm the child growing inside of me because I was stupid. I was able to make the conscious, acknowledgement that it was very stupid to harm myself that way, but I wasn't going to harm another human.
But I think that's true of any disorder or addiction is you can, I mean, I remember going, no, we're not doing this anymore. And guess where we were that Saturday night? I mean, I definitely, and you just sit there and go, okay, well, this is the last time. And this is the last time.
There's always that loop. And so, I mean, it's definitely, still unpacking lots of pieces. But that would be probably the hardest part I had to trudge through because I was very outgoing but I was also a really good actress. The world is a stage. And so
at least your world is always a stage.
So I think that was probably the hardest thing because it crept into everything. And I oddly am grateful for going through those things because it's made me who I am today. And I can look back on it. And even though I have struggles still, it's looking back on that and going, okay, this is where I can gain strength. I was weak then, I was stupid then, but I can be strong now. And hopefully impact other people and tell like you were saying, you have to tell your story. I think we tell stories because we want to say, hey, I've been there and you don't have to still live in this. There's hope. You can get out of it.
I also tell my story so my boys know you're not going to pull one over me. Honey, I've done better. Trust me.
I got 1 up, yeah. Or 5 up, yeah. So
this is not a challenge, however.
Yeah.
A lot. Like for me is I didn't spend as much time being a teenager in the traditional sense, and along with that, seeing choices and consequences of my family, I almost was excessively against things and just excessively rigid, I guess, in some choices and behaviors. It's probably the largest negative that I think came out of that, because I think there's some natural things that a lot of kids experience and do that my family's lifestyle and consequences thereof had me incredibly rigid.
Yeah. Although I will tell you, looking back at you as a teenager, I did not see you as rigid.
No.
Focused, definitely. You were the most focused person I knew, but not rigid. I thought you were pretty awesome. Yeah,
Well,
still do.
It's so interesting as I said, we have these friends that we've known and we go back and talk and we talk a lot about, well, God, in high school, I remember feeling like this. And they went, you never felt like that. I'm like, oh. So maybe we are better actresses than we all think we are. Or it's not as, well, it's in our forefront. It is not how we're actually presenting ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's true though. It's you're thinking I was rigid. Everyone just thought, oh gosh, she's gonna go places.
Yeah.
Well, things like if we were, because people didn't drink and party when they were in high school because they weren't old enough to. So that definitely didn't happen. Theoretically, if it was happening and somebody was considering driving, like World War II, like we'd be having serious words because give me your keys, you are not driving, like that is, and so.
See, I needed you in high school.
So rigid in that sense is I would just, no if, ands, or buts. Like I was a pretty serious regulator because those are important things. Like, no, you're not going to kill yourself or somebody else. And so, and not that it's a bad thing that I was looking out for my friends in that sense, but I was very extreme and confrontational and about it.
It's also, I think, your teenage years are those times where you are supposed to have those moments and then fail and feel safe when you fail. And it sounds like that might have also, the reason you're so strict, what was I trying to say?
Rigid.
Oh, you're trying to say both at once. I do that all the time.
Because you didn't have that safety net that the
Right.
rest of the people went, oh crap, I screwed up. Mom, dad,
Right.
whatever. I will say that is the one thing. My mother might have been 100% clueless, but I remember this vividly, getting arrested in Berkeley and I did not call my mother. I told the police my mother was out of the country, which was such a lie. Because I was like, there's no way I'm calling my mom. But I called my cousin.
Out of the country.
Because he lived there, and he was like, well, shit happens. Let's, and it's just that kind of, those moments to fail. So, and we won't talk about why I got arrested.
Okay.
Not this episode. It's not a bad story.
Well, and I think, thinking back, with you not having a security net and also creating a facade, and I think we all created those masks as teenagers. And it is, we look back and go, gosh, I was really this way. And in our minds, what do we take from that? And then also, what can we learn from that, now? So, it's tricky.
I think I've learned more from my teenage myself now as I'm older. And it's interesting to look back. And again, a lot of it is forgiveness. You were talking, well, gosh, I wish I was as fat as I was when I thought I was fat, kind of thing. It is truly that forgiveness and really just saying, made it through a lot. You did, to me, that's been the bigger part as I've gotten older and older. I think our memories are a little clouded too as we get older.
Maybe.
A little shinier.
Maybe.
In some ways.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll go. Did
Yes.
you want to? Did you already share, Fabulous?
Well, I think I kind of summed it up. I mean,
Okay.
for me, the negative was just not being comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And then just wondering if people really knew who I was, would they really like me?
Yeah.
Because
That's always
they
hard.
don't know me, so
Yeah.
would they like me?
Yeah.
Big questions.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to skim through mine. I think my ugly was really, I switched from being, I did share on a podcast not too long ago about my, my experience after the sexual abuse as a child. And it actually went on until I was like 15. When I finally put a stop to it and was like, this needs to stop. But I went from being a toxic child, because that's what you do when you've been sexually abused, and to realizing it was wrong. I don't know how. I have no idea even when. It wasn't like a conscious decision. I just stopped.
And
And
at that
then
age, you see more. You have there was an opening, I think, too.
well, and that was earlier. I don't even know. think that stopped maybe when I moved from elementary school into a middle school, and then my focus went to boys, like in a very obsessive way. And so unfortunately, what I see when you talk about having so many friends, I dated every single one of my guy friends. Like every single one of them, ruined all those relationships. And
a few.
I didn't just end, I burnt bridges with so many people. And, you know, I didn't know how to have girlfriend relationships. I had a few, but even those, it was really kind of toxic. I mean, I just was, in the background, I was a toxic person. I do know now, I have had those conversations with a few people, like, you were toxic? Yeah, like, I think you were really nice. And so I do know that some of that inner thought is not true. So that ugliness, you know, like even when Alex and I were dating, I kept trying to dump him. I was in such a habit of, I would be dating one person and I'd be getting the next person ready. Like I just was in this pattern because I needed someone in my life constantly. I was afraid of being alone, and yet I also didn't want anybody. I didn't want to fall in love. I didn't want to get married till I was 25, and I didn't want to have kids till I was 35. And if that's even if it happened. And yet I had a pattern of I needed somebody, like very toxically. I needed somebody. And so I always had a boyfriend. I always was seeking that out. And even when I had that solid relationship, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but that poor guy, I probably dumped him every other week. And yet I couldn't seem to let go of him. And so I'm thankful, you know, that's been dealt with in my, like, it was dealt with it earlier in my 20s when I hit my rock bottom. But yeah, we actually got pregnant our senior year. So we went to boot camp, came back, and we were just like, oh my gosh, school's so stupid. We had been treated like adults. We, you know, were throwing grenades, shooting things. We could have drank on base if we wanted to, or off base actually right there, because they knew, they're like, you know, these kids are like giving their lives up basically. And
You can have a beer.
And then we had to come back to high school. My senior year was such a joke. We skipped a ton. And then we got pregnant also. And that really was one of my very probably first defining moments, because I didn't want to be in love. I didn't want to be married. But then I also knew I didn't want to, like once we decided to keep the child, so we obviously had a lot around that too. I didn't want to not be home for my child. I don't know how I knew that. Again, I was like definitely not wanting to be a mom, but I also knew like part of the reason this happened is because I've had nobody home ever, you know, and so I just knew, I was like, if we're going to keep this child after we got done with the screaming and shouting matches over that, then this is what I want. And Alex said, okay, that's what we're going to do. And even just that like blew my mind. I was like, oh, you mean this could actually happen? Like what? So for me, I mean, the teenage years absolutely were defining moments for me. It all came out of just a lot of ugliness for me. I don't think everybody saw that going on. But in my inner self, that's what was happening. And so, but I definitely had big moments. I had the moment where I said, this has to stop. At the age, I think I was 16, because I was finally dating Alex. I was actually having sex. And I was like, this has to stop. This is not okay. This is wrong. And like calling
Did you know
them,
what right was?
Right. I like, sort of, yeah.
Not that it's right to have
Yeah,
sex
it
in high
wasn't-
school exactly, but you know what I mean.
You know, right or
the
wrong,
person
whatever
you're choosing.
everybody said, you know, my parents thought it was wrong and I was doing it anyway. So there you go. So yeah, it was just, there were major defining moments. So I guess I'll go right into that good of, there were major defining moments, you know, there were so huge. Like even though I know I wasn't perfect at it, I did have such defining moments in my teenagerhood that, you know, like becoming a mom as a teenager. We actually graduated. You were talking about graduation. We graduated Monday, got married Friday. You know, And
quicker than me.
but and it was only because of money, because he was going to go back to his military training, and we were like, oh, well, we make more money if we're married, so we were going to wait, but we're like, why wait? Let's get married.
Yeah.
We're already having a child, so hey, let's do this. But that defining moment, I mean, I can literally see the layers upon layers of those defining moments where I didn't want to lie anymore. You know, the moment when I finally was like, I don't want to be a liar. You know, that moment when I was like, I don't want to have this happening to me anymore. I don't want to, you know, not be there for a child that I'm about to have. You know, I still had plenty to learn, obviously. We all do. You know, those early 20s weren't any easier because I all of a sudden was a mom and I didn't magically figure it out. I was a terrible mom for the first couple of years, but
we all are.
Yeah.
In some regards.
Absolutely.
And you're like, wow,
Yeah.
what is this thing?
But I can see the foundation when I look back of who I am today, and how, you know, I had those two as a kid, you know, I had those two different people. I can see those coming together and becoming one person, and finally like deciding like, I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't, you know, I didn't want to be the person who was looking for the next person anymore. Like I remember making that conscious decision because that was such a bad habit of mine. And like, okay, Lord, I am giving my life, like I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And those all were like, it was actually in my early teens because I was so young when I was married and had the kids. So I can see those foundational pieces, and I love who I am today. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I hate that that's my past, but I love who I am. So, okay.
I don't think I had a defining moment in my teens or that final thing. Unfortunately, mine carried over, and the wildness got worse and extremely worse until my probably about 22. And so I don't have a moment really in my teenage years other than, I guess, moving to go to school. Went to school, and they told me I had to live with my cousin, who's 8 years older, because the goal was for her to not become a cat lady. They wanted me to take her and do stuff with her, and they wanted her to kind of calm me down.
How'd that work?
It did not work. It did not work at all. I think she ended up with more cats, and I spent more time out. But looking at that freedom then, and looking at her, and really seeing, and it wasn't as though our parents were subtle about this either. So it was like, you know, our moms were both like, nope, both of you guys, there's got to be something going on. I was still wild after that, though. And here I am really more on my own, and I was still doing the same things and still having the same issues. So it wasn't defining, other than the fact that it really wasn't against my family or my mom. It was just where I was. And I think that until I found out that's where I am, and then, okay, now it's my turn to change. I can't blame it on someone else. I can't have other people's things, their other baggage and so forth like that. So
I think
that was it for me.
Defining moment was in my 20s too. That, you know, I went from beginning to be able to be myself at home and with like in the church youth group or whatever, and then but really heading off to college and just deciding people don't know me. They don't know if I'm shy. So I'm not going to be shy. You know, or whatever, and just kind of you know, and I was ready for that step. And so
Reminds me of kindergarten. Good. Hi, do you want to be best friends?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah. It's a new beginning.
Yeah, fresh start is good. And and you've been through enough and had the help you needed. So, you know, I think the role of mother, and it could be father too, but just the invaluable mentor who is involved in someone's life through all those years and situations.
Absolutely.
I think the defining point for me is when I decided to live on my own, because it was a very active choice that I made. But when I didn't make it rash, I actually, do you remember Mr. Dunaway?
Mm-hmm.
Had some conversations with people at school and some state social workers, and a lot of thought and conversation took place. But when it became clear that the only way, at least, and that's probably not completely true, but it seemed that the only way for me to build the life that I wanted to build meant that I had to move out and live on my own in high school. And so that moment and making that choice was probably the most defining.
It's pretty big.
Just big, yeah.
Yeah. How old were you?
Right about 16.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's a really big move.
I wanted to move out, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have probably been as mature to do quite that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there was maturity in it. I mean, there was a lot of immaturity in it.
Well,
and a lot of,
probably, I guess, yeah.
but I did have external support. I had friends with parents who were very loving and supportive, and family friends that were very loving and supportive. And so, but yeah, I was out. I mean, I would check in with people, let them know, like, by the way, I'm going to go to the beach for the weekend. So if you don't hear from me in a week, you should probably do something.
You should probably call the authorities.
But yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing is when I made, when it was clear that was what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, that's what you got to do. You just,
Yeah.
I didn't learn that until my 30s, but got there. That's 2 episodes from now.
Yeah, are we?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely making the decision to get engaged and be married. And prior to that, we had opened up like a bank account together because just some certain things going on. So it was just slowly melding, our 2 lives and realizing, okay, this was the path I needed to take. And definitely had people in my school and my friends that were like, what, this is crazy. And what are you doing? and it was just one of those things that it was what made sense for us. And it was very intentional. It was not a decision that was made just helter-skelter. It was, we, at the time, I really had shifted and really had gotten deeper in my relationship with God and had kind of shifted there. And my husband had also really had shifted back towards a focus in his walk. And so, we knew that if we were getting married this young, that it was only going to be by the grace of God that we stayed together. And we had people even in the church that were like, no, we had 2 pastors who were not going to marry us because we're like, nope, not going to be part of this. We're like, okay,
Find someone else.
And, we had certain people that we knew that were just like, yeah, this is just a disaster. And then we're like, okay, whatever. And so it really has been by the grace of God, especially those first few years. But, that's because that's always going to be the hardest. But we grew up together, we kind of, there's a blessing and a curse to that.
Yeah.
And I know it's not for the faint of heart, but it was one of those finding moments of like, okay, this is what I have to do. And so it definitely changed the trajectory of my life and would definitely not be probably in the same place I'm at now, Started adulting very young.
I like that you say it's intentional, because I do think there is this thought process that at that age you cannot be intentional.
Right.
And it's no, they can be pretty intentional. So.
Well, like your decision, that was intentional. You knew that's what you needed. And I think, we give often, joke that teenagers are like, Mom, I mean, sometimes you see them.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
No, wait, they are.
Sometimes you see them on
Are,
TikTok or
But
whatever.
they're supposed to be.
They are.
But that doesn't mean they don't have intention. And I think
Exactly.
that's
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They can,
Right.
they are that way, but
Mhm.
they can be serious. They can actually be really starting to think forwardly and to foster that, you know, to be able to say, okay, well, think more on that.
Be
More
a
about
kid.
what
Be
you
a
wanna do.
kid as long as you can too.
Oh, yeah.
I say that, and then I go home to 3 children who have not moved out.
That's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We were there.
I know. My husband goes, maybe we're making it too nice.
Oh,
and
I thought that too, but then eventually it happens.
I know the minute it does, I'll be like, oh, where did they go?
Oh no, I was like, get out.
I have
emotions.
yet.
That was last
I
year,
haven't-
though.
The house
I'm not
next
there.
door is for sale. Get out.
See, but that's
This is a whole episode.
Yeah.
I
So much to say.
Yes. We talked about teenagerhood, and then there's also parenting teens. And
Yeah.
It's a
Yes.
whole
We just crossed over. Sorry, folks.
We're
That
gonna
was
come
still a
back.
lot to
yes.
unpack though here.
Oh my gosh, it really was just with that, as we knew it would be. So, okay, does everybody have their heart clear that they shared what they need to share? Okay. Whew, yes. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, there was a lot to unpack, and I know we all even kept it pretty surface level. So if there is any topic within that, I mean, heck, I already thought of, we need to talk about rock bottoms. I feel like everybody has that rock bottom story. Which could also be very deep. So, but I think these are important. And if we're talking about empowering and having fun and encouraging women, I think it's really great to know that you're not alone. So that's why we're doing these. But yes, let us know, share your story, and please comment below too, so that we can know if there's anything you want us to talk about. But I think that's what we have for you today. So until next time, bye.